Hey Year 12s, I thought I'd do a video because this week we only have one lesson together. I thought I'd do a video going through the structure of an argument analysis, but for the SAC. So for the SAC, you will get three texts. One will be a bigger text, then there will be some sort of comment or smaller text. And then there's going to be a cartoon that you have to analyze. So I thought I'd spend a little bit of time going through the structure of your essay so that you guys can jump in and write. We've spent a lot of time understanding arguments, learning how to annotate, and now it's on you guys actually practicing and writing it up because your SAC is in 2 weeks. Okay, so first, we've got to be really clear what the task is about. This is straight from the VCAR study design, and it says identify and analyze the intent of an argument. What language is used by the writers and creators to position or persuade an audience to share a point of view? So, what language or argument is persuasive and why is it persuasive? And then you are also writing down the impact of texts on audience. Again, how is it making the audience feel? By considering the similarities and differences. So that's why we're looking at three texts, because we're pretty much considering the similarities and differences. The way in which language and argument complement one another and position the reader. So you can see in this one dot point, we're looking at the impact of text and language and argument on readers. It says it like 3 times in this one dot point. How is the audience positioned to feel? And it says it here as well. Position the reader, impact of text on audiences, positioning the audience. So basically, the task is how is language and argument used to position the audience? So how we have gone about understanding this is basically you need to be writing down what is the writer doing, how is the specific audience intended to react or respond this way, and sorry, this is meant to be why. Why does the specific audience react and respond in this way? So it's what is happening, how is it persuasive, and why is it persuasive? And sometimes the how and why kind of overlap. Sometimes the why is it persuasive is related directly to the fact that it's a specific audience and they're going to think about something specific. Or it can just be in the language or the argument itself. So always when you are getting confused as to what the task is about, it's always what is happening, how is it persuasive, and why is it persuasive? Okay, so just an overview of the structure of your essay. You have an intro, and I'll go through what goes in an intro in a sec. You want to write 5 body paragraphs because you don't have a conclusion. You want to write 3 or 2 paragraphs on text 1. Text 1 will be the larger text. Then you want to write 1 paragraph, or you can write 2 if you want to write 2 smaller paragraphs on text 2. And then 1 paragraph on text 3, which will be the image. When you introduce text 2 and text 3, the comparing bit requires you to have a couple of comparative sentences between text 1 and text 2, and a couple of comparative sentences between text 3 and either 1 or 2, whichever. So I'll go through that in more detail, but essentially intro, 2 to 3 paragraphs on text 1, 1 to 2 paragraphs on text 2, and 1 paragraph on text 3. Okay, that is your structure. Now, I'm going to go through each bit of your essay kind of sequentially so you know what it's about. So an introduction. Lots of people have different acronyms for introductions so that you remember all the different bits. I don't. I just kind of remember what we need to do. But I think there's an acronym like FLAP-CT, maybe FLAP-CAT. I don't know. But with FLAP-CT, you need to include the form. Oops. The form is whether it's a blog, whether it's an editorial. Remember, an editorial is when the piece is a newspaper article, but it doesn't have an author. So an editorial is when the newspaper itself is commenting on an issue. It could be an opinion piece. It could be a food review, which they got 1 year. It could be a speech. You've got to be really kind of aware of the different types of forms. And so that's what you need to include. Language is a brief little comment on whether it is formal or informal. It can just be the insertion of that word, so I know you understand what kind of language is being used. The audience is who the specific audience is, who they are, and what they value. The purpose, what is the author trying to do here? His or her contention, the tone, and there's also the background information on the issue. Now, because in your SAC you will have 3 texts that you need to introduce, you've got to introduce the forms for each one, you've got to introduce the contentions for each one, and their purpose and their tone. It'll just be slightly longer. This is another way of figuring out what goes in an intro, what the issue is, the writer, tone, contention, and text type, which above I said it was form, and the intention and the audience. If you do like 3 practice intros, you'll get it down pat. You won't be like, oh, I'm scared I'll forget a certain thing. This just takes practice. It's really easy. If additional texts are present, such as a second written text or image, you are encouraged to introduce this text as well. This is a sample intro. As obesity levels rise, that's a bit of background information, a British politician has proposed the implementation of a sugar tax on soft drinks to reduce sugar consumption. O'Reilly, that's the author, has published an opinion piece, that's the form, logically arguing, that's the tone and the language, that the proposed new tax is both unjust and ineffective, that's the contention, aiming to instill doubt in British adults, the audience, and ultimately challenging the motives of those proposing it. That's his purpose. He's trying to challenge the motives of those proposing this tax. Can you see how all of that is ticked off in 2 sentences? So it doesn't have to be super long at all. If relevant, so we're going to have an image, so please introduce the image. If relevant, a graph is introduced which affirms O'Reilly's claims that this proposed tax has been proven ineffective. So that's this purpose. And then here's a secondary text. In contrast, a letter to the editor, that's the form, from Frustrated, a general practitioner, challenges criticism of the tax by suggesting that it's largely driven by people's unwillingness to change their dietary habits. That's its contention and its purpose. Purpose is the challenging criticism, and what he's suggesting is the contention. Okay, so that is what goes in an intro. All of these notes that I'm using here are in your booklet, so you guys need to start using that if you haven't looked at it yet. Okay, so let's move on to body paragraphs. I'm just going to check how much time I've got left. Okay, I've got like 6 minutes left. Basically, in your body paragraph, you are doing those 3 things repetitively. What is happening? How is it persuasive? Why is it persuasive? Remember, we've talked about the order of arguments. So the fact that the first argument is first. Why is it first? Why is it in that order? That also is analysed here. So this is a sample bit of analysis of that Spire Primary School article about the rubbish in the schools. So it says here, following Walker's stress on the school role in combating the rubbish buildup, she ensures that parents, the readers, specific audience, are also aware that they are complicit, identifying areas in which they should improve. By positing this argument after the first, the principle ensures that parents do not feel attacked but can respect and acknowledge shared responsibility. This sentence is analysing why this argument is coming second. So it's analysing the order of the arguments. It's saying, how is it persuasive? Well, it's the second argument. Why is it persuasive? Because the parents don't feel attacked. They can acknowledge some shared responsibility. To incite action on their part, that's Walker's intention. Walker describes in detail, this is what Walker is doing, her motivation in writing her message, and through this seeks to make parents realize that they have been unconsciously contributing to the amount of superfluous packaging in everyday life. She elucidates, again, use of verbs. This is what the author is trying to do, that this crime is seemingly innocent but harmful by repeatedly describing the packaging with adjectives such as little and cute, identifying that this is all a facade that has culminated in more rubbish. So what is the author doing? How is it persuasive on the particular audience, which in this case is the parents? Okay. Now you can analyze specific word choices as well. I highly encourage you to do so. This is an example. Words such as plague, treatment, symptomatic carry connotations of sickness, positioning parents to feel concerned at what is depicted as a contagious element within the community that may spread to their children, and thus encouraging them to protect their children from harm. Oops.